Hi everyone, this is Dr. Lancaster. I've had a couple questions about the final project and I thought it would be a good idea to do a quick PowerPoint presentation and add some explanation to certain parts of the project. So let's get into it and check things out. So here's what I'd like to cover in this video. I'm going to go over the project, just a broad picture of what it's for, what we're going to do. Then we'll dive in to look at the components of the paper. And then we need to talk about formatting in APA style. I know when I first learned APA, I wanted to pull my hair out because it's so precise about every little thing, and different guidelines just didn't seem intuitive to me, but we learn it anyway. So I'll go over that. And then lastly, I'll go through the grading rubric of what you need to really hone in on as far as the point system goes. All right, so let's look at the big picture of this project. This final project is a department requirement. So I'm required to give this to you and have you complete this paper. All Psych 223 students will be assigned this project in all of BCTC. And the purpose is to meet several learning objectives that KCTCS has. So there's learning objectives, it meets course competencies that it meets, and different milestones that it meets. These are listed in the project. I'm not going to read through them, but basically it's applying the theory, understanding the theory, comparing different behavioral theories, and being able to write in a formal structure. And for us in psychology, that's APA. Another standard that it requires us to do is to present a persuasive argument for social action based on a reflection and analysis of your personal experience, observation, and outside knowledge. This is related to those final questions I ask you to write about in the concluding paragraph, if you remember, of your application paper. So we'll talk more about this when we look at the grading rubric, but it just stands out there as something we need to also write about because you'll be graded on it. All right. So another part of the project overview is that if you think about the big picture of what we've done all semester, I first introduced Brafenbrenner's ecological systems approach to you in the very first chapter when you had to read about different developmental theories. You went into a little bit of depth to apply a couple ideas from your own life to Brafenbrenner in one of our first discussion boards. And then we progressed on through the semester. You had to apply in more depth to different aspects of your life for each system within the application paper for Module 9, which is great. That means you have a big bulk of this project already completed. So that's the good news in all of this. So we're just adding to that application paper you wrote. It also brings together, initially you learned how to do a search for research articles. I know this is painful. It is hard to read those articles. It's hard to even understand them sometimes when you're first starting out, but you persevered and you learned how to pull out just the major the methods, the overview of what they were for, and then the results. So, and then you went on and you found 2 research articles and summarized them in Module 12 that were related to the topics you talked about in your paper. And that's purposeful because you're going to incorporate these results from those 2 papers within the system that they go with, the systems that they match. So you'll add that to your application paper to have it become part of your final project. And then you'll add those, or add that paragraph, maybe you wrote 2 paragraphs, but add the comparison that you did with Brafenbrenner's model to the 2 other developmental theories. You just wrote that in module 12 as well. So you've written the components of this project. We're just putting them together now in the final project. So just to reiterate that idea, within your application paper, you're going to incorporate the research results into the applicable system that you related to your life. So for example, if you summarized an article, a research article about the effects of COVID, you would weave those research results into the paragraph that you wrote about your chrono system, because we know big major events through time fall in the chrono system. So those results would go there. So for example, you could segue a sentence within your application of the chrono system to your life. You can add the research results in there. So you could write something like, related to my experience, Jordan 2025 found that the isolationism caused by the pandemic tended to increase social anxiety among first-year college students. So it's not a huge discussion of the information you found in your research article. It's just adding to your application of those different systems and the elements of your life that you wrote about in the systems. It's just adding the scientific support or evaluation or addition to those different systems. So send me questions, email me questions if you need more explanation of this, but you're going to weave those results, the research results, with this in-text citation like this within the systems that they go with. So you got to look at your research articles and figure out which of those 5 systems that they go best to, and then weave it into your paragraph. Make sense? I hope so. If not, email me. So the project overview. So let's look at the project components, what's involved in this. And it's going to sound like I'm repeating myself. Excuse me, I needed a drink of water. All right, so this project, the final project that I call it, our department, the psychology department, is calling this final project I have a typo. It should be Roots and Realities Application Project. So Roots and Realities. I don't want to confuse you. That just means the same thing as final project. So this final project has 5 major areas in it. It has the introduction. So you will use the introduction you wrote for your original application paper, but after you add your research to this paper and you add your theory comparisons, you need to update your introductory paragraph to encapsulate the additions that you made of the purpose of the paper. It also, the second thing it'll do is have the analysis of Brafenbrenner's 5 systems. You have already done that in your paper. So you have that. You're going to add what you wrote about the theoretical comparisons. So maybe you compared Brafenbrenner to Piaget and Erikson, or Erikson and Vygotsky. You'll add what you wrote into your paper. I would say it's just another paragraph after the 5 systems are analyzed. And then, as I just talked about, you'll integrate, you'll weave in your research results from those 2 research articles that you summarized into whichever systems they go into. So maybe one goes in the mesosystem or even the microsystem. Maybe it's about your caregiver's parenting styles, or maybe one goes in the chronosystem, like the example I gave. So you weave that in. And then in your conclusion, you need to update the conclusion you wrote in your original application paper for this final project to include also the research and the theory comparisons that you've added to it. It's also in this conclusion that you really need to emphasize the big picture of why it's important to understand developmental theories and why what we've learned about Bronfenbrenner's theory can go on to help make better educational systems or community resources or however else you can think of. How does it help people? The big picture of helping people. Make sure you have a couple sentences of that to really address the societal impact of understanding developmental psychology like we do through this theory. And many of you have already done a really good job. So this final project has these 5 major components. What is extremely important is for you to go into your grade book and look at the comments I gave you on these 3 areas. So you need to look at your paper and see what I said about your introduction, the 5 systems, and your conclusion. Maybe I asked you to improve parts of that, or you got marked down because you didn't include some broader ideas there. So make sure you know what those changes have to be. Those have to be done before you start adding your research and adding the theoretical comparisons. So read for Module 9 and Module 12, read the comments I made to you on your application paper, especially in the references area. Few people got all the parts of references correctly. I'm going to address that a little bit better today. And also on Module 9 with your research summaries and your comparison paragraph. Beef those up if you lost points there, and then start writing your final project. Hope that makes sense. All right, I'm going to pop on over into our Blackboard site just to show you where this is, and you can see the depth of it. So let me get over there. All right, I'm in our class site. It's my teacher view, it's not your student view, so it might look a little different. Doesn't have all those crazy dots on the side. All right, so where am I? Let's go into, where is it? All right, let me get out of here. I was in my 12-week class. All right, here we are. Let's go down to the final project. There we go. All right, so looking in this module, I've put a lot of stuff in here and I don't want you to get confused about it. So be sure you read all of the blurbs I've written and start at the top and work your way down. So important, review your gradebook, comments, so I've just mentioned that. I also added all the resources that you've used in Module 9 and in Module 12. I put it all in one spot here if you need to go back and find it. So I put the different information of reading about Bronfenbrenner's ecological system, so the connection to the ebook, those other links we've had, they probably look familiar. You used them when you wrote your application paper, so those are in there. The directions on how to do that, research article search, I put that here. I put using APA guidelines here as well. So this is really important to use when you're getting your APA style in order. I also, in this document, in the APA writing guidelines, I put the references that I have used to create your assignments. So if you, and you'll probably be referencing these as well. So make sure you know they're here. You can copy and paste these into your references, or just copy this whole page, take this part off, right? And use references. It's really helpful. I'm okay if you want to do that. So this is the book, and these are the two websites that we learned information from. So that's in the APA writing guidelines. And then part 1, write and submit your draft. This is where the instructions are of this whole project. So let's go in here, part 1. There's 2 things that are in here. So here's the application assignment, and then under it is the grading rubric, which are grading guidelines. The word rubric always threw me off when I was a student. I was like, what the heck's a rubric? But it's just the guidelines. It means that's how I'm going to grade it. So let's look at the application assignment here. Just a second. So here's what it looks like. It just talks about the purpose of it, what skills you'll gain. It goes into depth of what goes into that introduction paragraph. You already have it. You're just going to beef it up after you add your results and your comparisons. It talks about that analysis of the 5 systems. Again, you have that. It talks about the comparison of the 2 different theories. You've already done that. You're going to just add it to your paper. It talks about the integration of the research. So you've already summarized these research articles. Now you're just going to pull the results out and stick them where they go and cite the source to add some reinforcement to your paper. And then your conclusion, you're going to, again, update it to make sure it encapsulates and includes a comment about using the research results and the comparison of the theories. And then there's a part in here I really want you to clue in on. In the conclusion, make sure you cover these points. So summarizing the systems, how they shaped your development, you probably have that. Everybody did that pretty well. You'll want to also mention how the model differs from the other theories. That has to be included. That was not, of course, in your original paper. But you really need to write a couple of sentences about this. And I mentioned this a little bit ago, but how might this knowledge change your future actions and thoughts about yourself and your thinking about others, the world around you? But really go into depth about this. How does the theory help you understand human growth and development beyond yourself, beyond your family or your children or your parents? It's other people. How do you understand other people? And then lastly, I really want you to answer this question as well in your conclusion. How can knowledge of these theories or Bronfenbrenner's theory be used to improve educational or other social systems? So it's a chance to think really deeply about this and address the bigger picture of how this can help. And then we're using the APA formatting, and I'll go over that in a second. And then you'll submit your first draft of this. You'll write the whole project, do your best work. It'll be a Word document or in a PDF file. It cannot be a Google Doc. It cannot be a Pages doc created by a MacBook. It can be created there. It just has to be exported to a Word document. But make sure your formatting doesn't get goofed up, because the stuff I see has to be in APA style. And then the learning outcomes are here. All right, so I will come back to this Well, let's just go through the grading rubric while we're in here. Then I don't have to jump all over the place. So the grading rubric looks like this. Let's make it big. So the things I have to grade on for this project are directly related to those learning objectives, the college and the Kentucky Community College System learning objectives and the milestones. So they're directly related to that and not the things I graded on in your application paper. So just to take a look, so you'll either get all the points for these, which is 4, or less than 4. So on the left-hand side, these are the things that the criteria are the 10 different areas that you're going to be graded on. So the use of psychological terminology correctly, that's using, what Bronfenbrenner's theory is called, the different parts of Piaget's theory. You're talking about systems instead of things, right? In Bronfenbrenner's model. You'll show that you understand Bronfenbrenner's theory. You'll show that you grasp a comparison, comparing and contrasting this theory to other theories. You will talk about the analysis of socio-cultural influences. This is the mesosystem. Is it the meso? No, the macro system. And this is an anomaly in this project, that because this is one of the learning objective questions, which is directly related to Bronfenbrenner's macro system application, make sure you answer this really well in the macro system. So explain how culture, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and gender influence the development of you within the macro system. So hit that a little bit harder in your macro system. Application to real life, you've done that in our application paper. It should be okay. You're integrating your research into your work. That'll be graded. The quality of your writing will be graded. The reflection on social action. So that's the concluding paragraph that I just talked about. You need to really think through and reflect and provide arguments for improving the world, which means social change, about how understanding the theory or theories can help in that. So make sure you hit that well in the concluding paragraph. We're grading for APA formatting again. As painful as that is, once you get used to it, it's not so bad. And then you're going to ask an AI generator for feedback on your grammar and sentence structure, not on the content. You are the expert here, not AI. You are the expert on what you're doing in this class. As far as Bronfenbrenner goes, you don't want to change your content, but you're going to use, in part 2 of this project, you're just going to run it through a AI generator to have it take a look at your grammar and sentence structure. So those 10 things are what you're going to be graded on. It'll balance out. I've updated the points for the final project to a total of 50 instead of 100. For 2 reasons. One is because it fits this grading rubric that was just given to me by my department. And secondly, I don't want to grade you twice for doing the same work. So in our class, you've already written that application paper, you've done your research searches, you've written a comparison. Other students in other classes may not have, so they're getting graded for the first time on writing that information. You've already been graded on it, so it just didn't seem fair to mark anyone down twice for the same thing. So that's my logic. You already earned a lot of points on this project over the course of the semester, is my perspective. So I've updated the assignment schedule and the syllabus to reflect that for this particular final project module. Please email me with any questions. All right, let's get out of here. I'm going to go back into my PowerPoint presentation. All right, so we just went through the project components. Make sure you read the actual assignment directions and the grading rubric, so take a look at that when you're ready to start. Let's talk about APA style, and I'll summarize areas that people are having trouble with too. So basically, you have a title page. It is a first separate page of your paper. There are the APA grading guidelines, or excuse me, the APA stylistic guidelines I have in our class site really shows better examples. I put a different link in there this time. So, okay, title page. It's a standalone first page of your paper. And then the body of the paper, what you're typing, don't put all the headers in there. You just need the title at the top of the first page. Take out any other subheadings that you put in there. It's just not a long enough document to break it all up. So body of the paper is double spaced. Indent the first line of every paragraph. So you use your tab key just to indent one over. Legible font is like 11-point Arial or Calibri. So I use Calibri. This is Calibri. 1-inch margins. Any document you open up, any blank document, it already has your margins set at 1 inch. Do not center your paper. Keep it to the left margin, and then add just a page number for the top right corners of every page. Within the body of your paper, when you cite something, it's called an in-text citation. So you're not inventing any of these ideas. You're summarizing. If it's your application, your own life, of course, that doesn't need a citation, but probably every paragraph has a citation of some sort, whether it's information you learned from the textbook or information you learned about Bronfenbrenner's theories in those websites. Maybe you're citing the research article that you're going to weave into one of your paragraphs. So it looks like this. You know, you cite it like, let me get my thingy. You cite it like this: Jones, comma, 2024, or whatever. You know, whoever the lead researcher is. Maybe there's 2, maybe there's 3. If it's more than 3, you would write Jones space et space al. So et space al period and then the year. So that's your paper, your project. And then there's the reference page. The reference page is a separate last page of your paper. It stands alone with references centered and bolded at the top. References are in alphabetical order. They have hanging indents. This throws absolutely everybody off. It means the very first line of a reference is not indented, but every other line in the reference is indented. It is the very opposite of what you do in the body of the paper, which in my little pea brain makes, okay, it makes no sense to me, but it is what it is, and I've had to learn it, and you have to learn it. So the first line's not indented, all the rest are. References are also double spaced. That throws me off a little bit too, but it is what it is. So anything you write about from the textbook or the research articles or the websites, those all are in your reference page. the APA guidelines are in, it's called the APA writing guidelines, and those are right in Blackboard, and I showed you where those are available. So go in there and look at them. It's pretty helpful. This one's more helpful than what I put in before I found a better thing. So let's take a look at what an APA paper looks like. So the title page looks like this. Notice everything's double spaced. There's more spaces between the title and your name. So Department of Psychology, Bluegrass Community Technical College, blah, blah, blah. Our class, my name, and the date. Notice there's a page number 1 on the title page. So set your page numbers just to put it in the top right-hand corner on all the pages. The body, when you start typing the body, notice that the title is bolded and in the center, and that every new paragraph is indented, and that it's double spaced. Notice that it's flush on the left, and that it looks a little ragged on the right, and that's normal. So this is left-hand margin. Great. So that's pretty straightforward. Those aren't what throws us off so much. And then within your sentences, you would put the citations. You don't need page numbers, but we don't need the page numbers. Just make sure you have the author and the dates in there when you do citations. And let's look then, our last page is the reference page. Let's go through this in a little bit more depth. So it's on a brand new page. It's a standalone page. References is bolded and centered at the top of the page. And then we have this hanging indent. So notice this. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 references on this page. So the first line is not indented. The rest of them are. So lines 2 and 3 are indented. The second, and this is in alphabetical order, the second reference is not indented, so it has the hanging indent, and then the preceding lines are indented. So 90% of everyone sort of missed that when you did your paper and your summaries. Some people got it, but it's easy to miss. So I'm going to explain it here. The other thing I want you to clue in on is that everything is double spaced in your references, but there's not quadruple space between each reference. It just continues on double spacing. I hope you can see that. And then there's specific rules on what gets italicized for different references. So for us, we're going to have 3 different types of references. We're going to have website references that we got some information about Brafenbrenner on. We're going to have research article references that you have from your research article search. And then we have our textbook. Let me show you the differences in what you italicize in these. So with a website, so the author here is the APA board. Our websites have actual authors, so the authors goes here. But notice the title of the article in the website is italicized. APA guidelines for the undergraduate psychology major. So that's italicized. And then you add the website of where it came from after that. And it's different for research articles. The next example is a research article. So Appleby and Appleby, 2006, they have the title of their research is Kisses of Death in the Graduate School Application Process. Please notice the title of the research article is not italicized. Only the title and this little number is the volume number. Only the title of the actual journal is italicized. That throws everybody off. And then make sure that you have the DOI information after that, not the website, not the website. this is taken off the top left-hand corner of your research articles. It should show, this is a document identification number that's specific to that article. It's not the website. So make sure you have that here. It's explained more in the guidelines for APA. And then we have the last one is the textbook. Well, the textbook title is italicized. You just put the edition it is and you don't put the year anymore, you just put the publisher. So I know it's crazy, isn't it? Like, not the same kind of titles are italicized for everything. So clue in on that. It's very different. Let me know if you have more questions about formatting. And then lastly, there's 3 parts of this project, and I want to be clear on what they are. So part one's where you're going to pull all this stuff together. You're going to write a beautiful paper. You're going to do your very best. You're going to add the research results and the comparisons of those other theories into your application paper. You're going to beef up the intro. You're going to beef up the conclusion. Make sure you talk about the impact of social systems. Make sure you talk about, is it in the mesosystem? Beef up the mesosystem. Do your very best work. That's excellent. That's part 1. Make sure everything's in APA order or format. Double check those dang references so they're in that crazy format and they have the right things italicized. And when you think it's the best you can absolutely do, submit that for part 1. When that's submitted, part 2 and 3 are going to open up for you so you can access them to do it. I have them closed for a reason. I don't want you to go on to part 2 and 3 until part 1 is submitted, which is your beautiful, beautiful project, nice and shiny. In part 2, I'm giving you a chance, and this is department-wide, we're giving you a chance to try out an AI generator like ChatGPT or Copilot. You just do a search for that on the internet. It's a really simple registration project with ChatGPT. I've never used Copilot, I don't know. And then you just put your paper in there and you tell AI what you want it to do, what you want it to look for in your paper. The only thing I want you to tell the AI generator to do with your paper is to just to give feedback on your grammar and sentence structure, and that's all. I can't say that any more clearly. Nothing else, just your grammar and sentence structure. You do not want it to change the content that you wrote so much time and effort doing. You do not want it to rewrite your paper. You have more knowledge in this than they will, or than it does, the great it. So just have it check your grammar and sentence structure. Look at what it gives you. Decide if you think that's what you want to change. And then you have to do something really important. Whatever results it gives you, you need to save a copy of those to submit with part 3. I want to see what you did, what you ask AI to do for you. And then if you want to use those edits that the generator gives you, go ahead and edit your paper to fix the grammar and the sentence structure errors. It's just to help you fix that. It's not to help you think. You did that already and wrote the content, but it's to help you learn a little bit better how to do grammar and sentence structure. And then clean that up. And this is so extremely important. I wish I could get an airplane and put a banner in the sky. It's really important that you make sure your APA formatting is correct after you run it through the AI generator. Don't let AI change your APA formatting, and if it does, you need to fix it. It doesn't do APA formatting it'll mess things up. So proof that before you submit your final project, your final draft. Make sure your APA stuff's all tightened up. So in part 3, you submit your AI results that you saved and also this fixed up paper. So that's the one I'm going to grade. Just submitting it in part 1, you'll get 10 points, but then the grading is going to happen in part 3. All right, so please email me with any questions. We've been preparing for this project all semester, so hopefully your confidence is pretty high. And then we already went through the grading rubric, so I'm not going to do that again. All right, so I probably talked longer than I wanted to, but we had an overview of the project. We looked at the different components of the project. So the introduction, the 5 systems, the comparisons, integrating the research, and the concluding paragraph. We looked at formatting and APA style. We went through those grading rubric, the guidelines, and hopefully you're feeling a little bit better about this project now that I've talked about it. But please email me with any questions. I'm happy to respond to you and get back to you. I want to be here for you to do your very best work. All right, everybody have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. Let me stop this recording. I'll see ya.